Hi, it's Ray from Proshaper in Charlton, Massachusetts, and tonight we're doing a E-Type fender. If you look at the Proshaper YouTube channel, you'll see that we just recently did a video on how to make this flexible shape pattern. Now that's what we're going to do, is we're going to make this fender using the flexible shape pattern and the gauges. These are the gauges. We make them out of cardboard. Watch that video and you'll see how it's all done. So this is relevant for somebody that wants to make a complete fender. This is relevant for somebody that's doing restoration work and wants to make a patch panel for it's rusted down here or it's rusted along this edge. So it'll cover quite a bit. So we're going to break this fender into two pieces. We've got the front section. We're breaking it about 12 o'clock on the wheel opening. And we got the back section. The back section is very easy. It's basically just a roll, and this has some area change in it. There's a bunch of shape. So this was taped on. We took it off. We put plaster of Paris on the back side that kills the low stick tape. And now this is our guide, and we've cut a blank, and now we're going to place that flexible shape pattern on the blank, and you see this is cut out for the headlight. Well, we don't want to cut that out right now. We could, but it makes it a pain to wheel out and stuff. We'll cut that out a little bit later after we get it roughed out. So first thing we're going to do, we'll get this out of our way here, is we're going to take a pen and we're going to outline this flexible shape pattern. Now we can squash it down a little bit like this, and we need the correct margin all around. This is where there's a big flange here, there's a flange here, there's a juggle here for the seat for the headlight cover, and then there's a flange here. That's a weld, so it doesn't need as much up there. So I think I got enough there right now in that position, so I'm going to go around with my pen. Alright, so now I've laid out the perimeter, and now in order to get this area change to go from that flat panel to that mountain right there. That's what we're making. We're not going to make a Jaguar E-Type fender. We're going to, our goal is to make that mountain. Now we can make that mountain by taking and beating it all out on a beater bag, and that would be all stretching, and that'll work. That's not a tremendous amount of area change. Let me get a straight edge. So I'm putting the straight edge on here, and I look, and it's got about 3 inches of area change, 3 inches of making a mountain somewhere on the panel. That's if all the edges are touching on the flexible shape pattern. You put the highest point like this with the ruler, and then you measure down. That's 3 inches. Generally my rule of thumb is it's a good idea to use shrinking to create that hump rather than just stretching. So we're going to shrink, and we'll get a shrink ratio of anywhere from 40 to 50% shrink, or maybe even just 30% shrink, and the rest will be all stretch. So I'll go for 50-50 at least, maybe a little more. So this is 060 3003 aluminum, and this is this really stiff stuff. It's supposedly H14, but I don't know what it is. It welds really nice, and it's China sourced, and this seems to be a trend that's been going on for a while, that the aluminum is very stiff. Prior to that, you used to be able to take your thumb and bend a corner like this. It was a good test to see what the malleability of the metal was, and I can't bend it with one thumb. With two thumbs, I can't bend it. So it's pretty stiff stuff, and I've grown to like this because it makes a very strong panel. I could anneal it, and it'll make it a little easier to do, but you just got to work a little harder to get it to move the way you want it to move. So our first goal is to just create this hump. Now, if we were English wheeling it with pattern wheeling, we would create a pattern and we'd start wheeling like crazy in the center here and stretch that up by compressing the metal, and that would grow the area by compression, and it would pop pretty quick. The problem is you'd get a little bit of thinning right here at this highest point. And this is all a standard compound curve because the flexible shape pattern edges are all touching. If there was a reverse present, the edge would be loose. So this is not a super difficult panel, but it's a lot harder to do, say, than the back section of it. So it's a good beginner panel. It has the added details of this juggle, a flange here, a flange here, and a flange here, and then a beaded edge here. So, and then this is a welded edge here. So let's first start with a plan, the flexible shape pattern, and now let's compare the flexible shape pattern with, say you wanted to make a E-Type Jaguar panel or fender. This is the right front fender, and your train of thinking was that you had to have a buck in order to do it. Well, that would require a good amount of time to cut all this wood up, or you have a CAD drawing and translate it into a DXF file and have it cut on a router and then assemble it, and then you need a left one and a right one. Well, this allows you to just turn it inside out, and it gives you a perfectly symmetrical other side. All the information is there. So this is, I believe, a much superior way to make panels of existing panels that have good surfaces on them. If you're making an original design, then you will have to make a buck. Not necessarily a wood one. You have options. You can make a wire form. Today, a lot of people are making these steel bucks cut on a laser cutter, and you can make a wood one. People use cardboard sometimes. So there's several different ways. Now, this system works really good for restoration. If you're making a patch panel or whatever, you don't have to make a buck for the patch panel. You just make your flexible shape pattern. So tonight we're going to start this panel. I don't think we're going to finish it because we're always in a time bind to get the video done and also not make it run 3 hours or so. So we have it planned out here. I have this hump I have to create. So I got to shrink in here like this. I'm going to put some shrinks in here, and I'm going to use my gathering tool and also my shrinking facilitator. Now, these aren't generally used tools in the craft. These are things that I've developed and innovated, and the reason I did them and why I innovated them was it's low cost, and 95% of the people that are either dabbling or want to learn this craft, they don't want to spend a lot of money on tools. Well, if you're going to be spending money on a pull max or something to use a shrink die on it, and it's going to take a lot of real estate up in your garage, it's going to be a lot of expense. So I cater to people that do not want to spend a lot of money with tools, and that's the feedback for tools, and that's the feedback I get at all my classes. So let's go see how this is done. So we're going to take this and we're going to put these gathers in here. So here's the Proshaper gathering tool that we made, and we're going to make these gathers here, and the way you do that is you bite into the edge of the panel like this, and you want to watch this panel go down. This is the top side of the panel. You want to watch it go down. And you just bite a little bit at a time, and you can come in. say this stuff is stiff, it's stiff. I think 18 gauge steel will work easier than this stuff. Now we do plan to have these dies for sale, and also maybe the machines. Trying to do the sit down method here. It looks like I'm going to have to stand up. That looks pretty good. So that's what we have. Now we put the flexible shape pattern on it. And you'll see we have an excessive amount of extra material here. Now we're going to collapse these in and shrink these by shrinking the metal into itself. This is the action we're going to get. We've created the gather. It's up like this, and we're going to force the metal into itself just like that. So we'll go over on the shrinking facilitator now and hammer these down. I'm going to try to use this shrinking facilitator. What's a shrinking facilitator? It's just standard construction lumber, 2x8s, and it has a rubber coating on it, which is EPDM. These 2x8s or 2x9s, 2x10s rather, are cut with a bandsaw, and it's modular, and you just screw it together with a picture frame around the edges. Very simple to make. You don't have to hog out a stump with a chainsaw. I will never ever make a stump by hogging it out ever again. It's just foolish when you can make it so easily with this technique. So what it allows you to do is make a much larger hollow, which really facilitates the shrinking. What it is it's a sort of a hammer form, and it also facilitates that shrinking process by being captured in there. And the rubber actually helps out too, because it holds the panel in. So you can watch the action here, and the whole process of shrinking is maybe a couple, 3-5 minutes at the gathering tool, and then another 10 minutes or so over here, and that might be enough. We might have to do 2 rounds. We'll see what happens. So we're going to use this medium crowned end to knock those shrinks down, and it's all about proper targeting. Now I'm going to get some headphones on here, some muffs. So here we go with the first one. So that's the result we want to see, is that spine right there. All right, let's see what we got just with that. One, two, three, four shrinks. With those four shrinks, and these yet to be done, it looks pretty good. So, next four. Now you can't do this as well in a stump. A stump, you would have to have a massive stump to make that, number one. Number two, on the stump, it won't allow you to shrink in that deep. Alright, this is what I call rough shaping the panel, the gross development of the panel. So where are we now? The flexible shape pattern tells you exactly where we are. A buck, if you had a wood buck or a wire form buck, the buck couldn't make any sense of this whatsoever. The flexible shape pattern understands it fully. Where are we? We have maybe an inch and a quarter, inch and a half of gap when we started with 3 inches. So now we did a round of shrinking. Now we'll do a round of stretching. But let's first determine where we want to stretch. We want to stretch where we need it the most. We asked the flexible shape pattern, where do we need it most? Less over here, less over here. Right here, that's the highest crown area right there. So we're going to hit that now with this low crown hammer. And as we hit this, these will all reactivate and we can shrink more. See what that, oh, look at that. I wasn't watching. I got to pull that out a little bit. So that's that automatic gather. That was getting into a little bit of a dangerous area, so we pull that out a little bit. And then we hit that down. And we hit it some more here. We watch these, it's popping a little bit here and here. I'm a little hampered. I have a sore right shoulder, so I don't want to pull it too bad. So I'm kind of favoring it. Okay, now let's see what we got. All right, now we're down to like less than an inch right here. So what I'll opt to do now is we'll just wheel this, rough this out, and then maybe do another round of shrinking and stretching. So we'll first knock these down just a little bit. Now we're going to dust it off to get the powder dust off, and we're going to wheel it. All right, so we got my big wheel here. Not everybody's going to have a wheel this nice, but you can do this with all kinds of different quality levels of wheels, even including a Harbor Freight wheel. It's going to take you a lot longer and it won't be as smooth, but you can get it done. So what I'm going to do now is just rough wheel this all out. My intention here is just to kind of smooth it out. There's no thought going into this other than the fact that I know it's all lumpy and bumpy and I got to get those lumps and bumps out. That's the only thing I'm going to be doing here. And there's a little bit of technique, say for these gathers. If you roll over them this way, it's not as effective as if you roll over them at a 45-degree angle. They crush down more effectively when you do it at an angle as opposed to just going over them like this. Now we will be going over them a little bit like this, but we're better served by going at a little bit of an angle. And then you take these gathers and they're all crushed up. It's best to knock them down when you pull through them like this. And I got, about medium squeeze on the wheel right now, pressure on it. And if you come out of the wheel, you don't do this stuff like this or spinning like that. It's not really good for the wheel. You go in at a 45-degree angle and it'll let you right in easily. And you should have some nice reliefs on your edges of your wheels. A lot of wheels are made with really strong edges and they'll bite. They don't let you in as easy. It's much better to have them radiused. Now the funny thing is this really stiff aluminum, we'll work it a little bit and it actually becomes more malleable, which is counter to the thought of most people because they read in books about work hardening, and this will actually work soften. There's a new word, work softening. This is metal is clay. That's my saying. We have a new T-shirt on the bottom of all the videos. We have T-shirts there, and there's one that's metal is clay. And clay, when you work it in your hands, it becomes more malleable and soft. Work aluminum in the English wheel, it becomes more malleable and soft. Hence, metal is clay. That's what I call the railroad track noise. And you see this here, you see the close-up. This white area is the distressed area here. This is where the metal is pushed into itself. And all that stuff will go totally away. If you shrunk this with a thumbnail die, you would have all these little marks, and a lot of them will come out. Depends on how good your die is. Another method of shrinking other than thumbnails is with an echo machine. Echo machine bites into the metal. They do have a no mar die. I've never really tried one, so I don't know how well it works. But generally you see people using echoes with the standard stipple dies, and they're leaving a lot of marks on it. This will look just like chrome plate when we're all done. So people might scoff and say, oh boy, he's got this great big wheel. Well, I built this, you know, like 1993, I believe I built it, and it was all scrap metal, so it didn't cost me a lot to build. So a lot of people, they want to take the challenge of building their own power hammer or building their own English wheel. If you're going to build something and you have the ambition, it's not that much of a bigger or greater expense to build it a little bit larger than you might think you need. Building a car from scratch, building an English wheel from scratch, the expense is mostly labor if you're doing it yourself. So remember now, right in here is where I need to stretch it the most. So with smoothing it out, we're going to give it a little more pressure, which will pop it a little faster. And we'll pull down on it like this. We want to stretch it right in between these two shrink zones here. And we'll slowly come out and settle these shrinks in. One thing you got to remember is every single square inch of the panel is addressed when you're making a panel. So this part over here is really kind of a flat part, but I got to blend it in here. A little dirt on here. Get that out of there. So the counting here, if you're counting the time, you know, less all the talking that I'm doing with creating this panel. If you take away all the description, it's like 5 minutes with the gathers, maybe 10 minutes with the shrinking facilitator, and we're probably going to do 15 minutes on the wheel here, getting this all nice and smooth, and then we'll do the whole thing again. So it's not a tremendous amount of time to develop this. Of course, this video here, we always try to keep our videos under an hour. I don't think I can make this panel in an hour. So we might only get it to about 85–90% of development. We'll see how we do. And now I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to get this back side here just to blend that in. So I have it in a curled arrangement. And I just want all the surfaces to flow together nice, because we know the fender doesn't have any lumps or bumps. It's a nice smooth transition over its entire surface. let's take a look at that and see what we have. So we take this panel and we go like this with it now. A lot of dust on this here. We go like that. You can see what we have here. We've got about 3 inches or so of crown, but these edges are larger than we need to be, so we still have that much more to go. So we've about halved it. So we got one more round to go. So if I cut a little bit of this out, that'll maybe help speed it up. Let's see, what else can I do here? We got a lot extra material here. We got a lot of extra material here. Yeah. Now I'll just go one more round. So we'll put the shrinks now. We'll do another round of shrinks. And instead of going right over the old shrinks, we'll go in between the shrinks. So I'll mark them. We got one here, one here. Alright, so you saw the shrinking process before, so there's no sense in video in the second phase of it. We'll show you the result after we get it done. Alright, there's our second round of gathering, and now we'll do the second round of knocking those down. Now let's see where we're at. All right, there we are. Right in here, that's our target area. See how these shrinks popped up? So what we have there. And now we're getting pretty close. Still right in that zone right there. Mark's helping me hold the panel. Alright, I think that might be good enough. What we'll do now is just crunch these down a little bit more and then we'll wheel it again. Alright, so we'll wheel it again now. It's no-brainer phase still. I mean, all we're going to do is just smooth this all out. People say, oh, you need 20 years of experience, you need 5 years of experience. No, you need good teaching. Remember, there's several ways to do this, so some people will say, oh, that's not the way to do it. And the reason why they're saying that is because they know a different way. That's fine. If you're a power hammer guy or a strict traditional English wheeler with wheeling patterns, you get great results. Nothing better than that. One of the common threads when people look at this, they go, oh, this must be a faster way to do it. Yeah, there is. It's called a press die. Just die stamp it. Takes a nanosecond to make this panel. Now another way that's a little faster is what the Polish have been doing. There's a bunch of Polish craftsmen that have been hammer forming. They stress the panel over a hammer form and then hammer it onto the hammer form, which is a form of die work. It's a capital expense, and they get excellent results and they're really fast. But a lot of people wouldn't want to spend the time to make all those hammer dies just to make a one-off. This is the beauty of this system, the flexible shape pattern, is it allows you to make copies of existing panels, one-offs, or even more if you want to. Alright, it's always good to start the panel with a little more material than you really need, just as an insurance policy that you don't short yourself. So if you do short yourself, you have to weld the piece on or something, which is something you don't want to do, but it's a possibility if you have to. But we're in the gross development stage of the panel. It's just roughing it in. And it's a good idea, like I said, to have that extra. We've got the extra. Now we don't need the extra because we got it pretty much roughed in. And from here on out, it'll be stretching. So I'll use the wheel now to finish it off. I might do a little bit of elastic stretching here and there on a beater bag. Elastic stretching is a little faster than just compression stretching it in the wheel. Now this panel is definitely a lot more malleable now after I've worked it. And you can see it's shining up nice. And we wheel it in this curled arrangement. This end of the panel hasn't had much attention. It's what I call a wiggle woggle or a live edge here. It's springy. So it's going to need a little attention. We'll puff it up in here a little bit and that'll take that live edge out. What we're going to do is, as I mentioned, we got extra material, and now I'm mostly going to stretch the panel. I don't think I'll do any more shrinking. That means the panel will continue to get bigger. How much bigger? A panel this size, if you stretch it, it'll grow probably about an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch in length this way, and this way it might grow 3/8 of an inch or so. So you get extra material and you have to cut that off. Now most of these shrinks have settled down. They got to disappear. That'll take a little more work to get them to disappear. I call it cold forge healing. You're cold forging the material back together again, and it heals up. All those stressed white areas go completely away. And if you'd shrunk with a thumbnail die, you would just have a lot more marking, and most of it will go away, but sometimes there's a little residue that shows. There might even be a little residue here, but generally it goes away 100%. So I'm just watching the panel, make sure I'm not creating any valleys or peaks. I know the panel is all smooth, so I'm looking for valleys, I'm looking for peaks. If there's a valley, I avoid it. If there's a valley, I go for it. If it's a peak, I avoid it. So let's turn this around here now, and we'll get this end. We'll assess where we're at, and then probably have to go into a higher pressure, but we might even do a trim. Okay, let's see what we got. This wheel has the red ball. That tells me where I'm at. I was over here with that red ball, so that was the pressure I had. So I know I can go right back to that existing pressure. So we're in the curl arrangement. Pop that over a little bit like that. And we can see our deficit. Now we're down to about maybe 3/4 of an inch right here. So we'll wheel it a little bit more. But we can mark this better and trim this better now. We've got a little bit down here, so it needs a little attention here. Very little to nothing over here. From here over, it's done. That's the worst spot right in here. So let's remark it again. Alright, now we have the panel rough trimmed. We still have more than enough on the edge here, but we don't have to work all that extra metal. So we're going to pump this area right up here. We've got to come up about 3/4 of an inch or so. And the goal here is to match the area value of this flexible shape pattern. Once we match the area value, then it'll range exactly like we want to. This, as you can see, will roll around perfectly and look like that Jaguar panel because that's where it came off of. That's its blueprint for it. So we need more area in order for this to be able to roll over. So let's pump it up a little more on the wheel. We got it looking like chrome plate now. All the shrinks have pretty much disappeared. And we're going to bring it back to that higher pressure zone. We'll even go a little further with it now. This is an advantage of a well-built English wheel. When you have the meat in the frame, it allows you to put higher pressure on. Now, if you build the wheel so stiff, like if I made this out of 2-inch plate on both sides or something, they would be so stiff it would barely move. And then what would happen is you would be thinning it out here, and it would be still the original thickness around the edges or where we shrunk it. It's actually thicker here, and would have a hard time navigating over there because you need a little bit of spring in your frame in order to be able to go over to the thicker areas. On a reciprocating tool like a power hammer, that's not an issue, but on an English wheel it is. But an English wheel gives a finer finish than the power hammer, and that's one of the appeals that I have, that I like about the English wheel, is that it prints this beautiful chrome plate finish on it, providing your wheel is nice and polished. I do have a video in my YouTube library showing how to polish anvils and how to polish top wheels. If you haven't looked at that, take a look at it. There's some really nice videos in my library. I have 115 videos now in the Proshaper YouTube channel, and it's all for free. And if you're ever considering taking one of my classes, this is great prep for the class. You're going to learn this craft. It's all about internalizing in your memory all these little factoids that I'm talking about, and also just having your body understand how it has to move, how your arms have to move, the hand-eye coordination to get this to all happen. So we're going to pump this up right in that spot. Then we'll back this off, and we'll see what our progress just yielded there. So we were at about 3/4 of an inch. Now we'll put this on, and now we're worst. Always look for the worst spot, and we're about 3/8 of an inch now. So we gained about half in just those few minutes. So we got to take the dust off again, and we'll give it a little more. Now we want to blend into these other areas too, because we got stop marks here. We want to blend that in a little bit. So we don't want to stop always at the same spot. You end up with a bunch of stop marks like that. So we're going to alternate, come in further in on some of them. But we'll still use that high pressure, and we'll get fast results that way. We're going into that tail section of the panel just to pump that up a little bit. Kind of neglected that. We had those stop marks. I smoothed those all out. All right, let's check that now. Okay, we're down to about 1/4 of an inch or so. I actually need more down in here. So I need some here, I need some here. So get the dust off, we'll give it another go. Back this off, get in, and then load it up again. And this is still what I call rough, gross development. We're just trying to get that area value. We don't care about what the panel looks like as far as whether it looks exactly like what we're trying to achieve here. It's almost starting to look like the Jaguar almost, but that's not our goal. Our goal is strictly just to increase the area value so that it fits that flexible shape pattern to a T. Now, reading the pattern, it's always a situation in the beginning of developing the panel is that you're underdeveloped. But when you start to get close like this now, you have to be worried about overdeveloping the panel. And overdevelopment means that the edge of that flexible shape pattern will go loose. And I might overdevelop one spot just to show you what that means. It's not the end of the world unless you really do a silly overdevelopment. Alright, back that off a little bit. Pull that out. It's not a good idea to clang the wheels together. I have soft bottom anvils, so. Alright, looks like it still needs a bunch. Still, this got a lot tighter. I don't have to go down here anymore. That's almost where it needs to be. Here is the main focus right now. We're going to give it a little bit more right in that circle right there. Probably another couple minutes. Pump the pressure up. Go even higher now. And now I'm going to back the pressure off a little bit and blend it a little bit into the surrounding territory. And then we'll do a reading. Where did those shrink marks go? Jeez, they're all gone. And the metal is getting a lot more malleable. It's work softening. Yep, metal is clay. Alright, we're still a little loose right there. We watch our edges here. See this edge here looks a little loose. I might be a little overdeveloped right there, and I'm a little loose here, but those are very, very minor. So I got to stay off of where that number 2 is there, but I still got a little bit right in here. So now if I did one more round of shrinking, I wouldn't have to stretch as much. But this stretching, if I cut this in half, this started out as 63 thousandths. I would guess that's probably like 55 or 58 thousandths now. Somewhere in that range there. If you would stretch the whole entire thing, it might be 50 thousandths, which still would be adequate. You still get your dent resistance. So I'm just going to concentrate in that one little spot. Every once in a while you should drag it out. But I got to avoid that spot over there. That's an easy fix though. All you have to do is wheel this edge just 2 or 3 times and that'll fix that. Let's see what that did. Alright. Still a little bit. There's like 1/8 of an inch there or so still. So it's playing hard to get. Right there. Maybe one more turn here. Now we've got to roll this way, and that'll put the other curve into it that we want. Set in the arrangement. We're not going to get this finished tonight. We're going to do just a rough development. We're going to finish it the next video. Now when you're wheeling it the long way here, you see how this goes into the curl? That's advantageous at this point because it allows us to traverse the whole panel with this really low crown wheel, which yields a nice smooth surface. And so that's the most efficient way to wheel the panel out, is this curl arrangement, which happens naturally in the wheel. It falls off of the wheel like this. Now if we turn it 90 degrees, it's going to fall off the wheel the other way, which is what we want, because that will set the arrangement and it'll add a little more area to the panel too, which we still need up in this spot right up in here. Now we might not be totally there, but we're running out of time for the night. It's getting really late, and we'll see if we can start setting the arrangement on this by pulling this over. Now I have pressure on it and I'm pulling it over, but I'm going to lower the pressure because I don't want to expand that back section that much there. So I'm going to back this off a little bit. Back it off some more. I'm going to go over here and start pulling this down. I'm going to basically break the back of it, like. It'll come right over. As it comes over, it straightens out this way. And as you develop your skills, you'll start to get a finer understanding of how shapes behave. When you bend them this way or you bend them that way, you can anticipate what's going to happen. It becomes intuitive. Now you can work the panel in this arrangement also, or this direction, but it's not as efficient as wheeling it the long way. So I'm using the bottom wheel as a fulcrum, and the panel is the lever, and I'm pulling down inducing that roll that's desired into the panel. And then we can go this way and get this bit of it to come over. Like that. Now this is all part of the E-Type nose that we're making. It's in the Proshaper YouTube library there. It's all for free. We're making an all aluminum E-Type nose. Every step revealed. All made with a flexible shape pattern. Now let's see what we got. So now it's starting to look like that E-Type fender. And we're looking pretty good. There's a little bit more right here. We can get that in there by wheeling it this way. So we're looking excellent. What we don't know is what our arrangement's supposed to be. So what we can do is take this, now we can't, this is called marrying the panel, but we can't do it perfectly because there's a little bolt stud is up here. But you can see that's pretty decent now, it's fitting pretty good. So we're in the ballpark, and we're really late on time, and I think we're going to have to cut it right here. So that's a nice looking panel that's just roughed out. We still have to finesse it a little bit, and then we have to do all the detail work, adding the flanges, this little joggle for the headlight. We're going to trim it further, but I think that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching. Proshaper.com is my website, and check out the YouTube channel, the Proshaper YouTube channel. It's Schelin from Charlton, Massachusetts. Thank you.